We finished Marvel's Spider-Man 2. I have been doing a Road to Spider-Man 2 series where I go through all the Spider-Man games that I played as a kid. So I thought that it would be fun if I rated all of those games that I played. So it's not obviously a list of every single Spider-Man game that I played, but it's going from PlayStation 1 onward. There are, I think, 2 of them on here that I haven't played, and we'll just kind of go through that accordingly. But the first thing that we got to do is we got to adjust this a little bit. Does this look about right? Goated, great, pretty good, mid, bad, garbage, and haven't played.
What about dumpster fire?
Dumpster fire. That's so fun. I am gonna add it. Oh, I love you, Amanda. I'm gonna get rid of bad because bad and garbage kind of feel like the same. To start, we have Spider-Man 2000 on the PlayStation. So I actually played this on PC when I was a kid. I remember it very, very well as like one of my first Spider-Man games that I experienced. I remember the chopper level where like you had to climb up. That was like really hard for me. Like in Venom being like one of the main villains, all the alternate costumes and stuff that you can get. Like you have Captain America, you have all the different Spider-Man villains that are there. There's like Doc Ock, Rhino, Scorpion, the Scorpion Chase mission, J. Jonah, Venom with the Spider-Wars. Like he was so fucking funny in that game. It was great. I wish I played it for my Spider-Man series, but I never got the chance to figure out how to play it. And I really wanted to because I remember having such fond memories of it and watching other people play it. I have such fond memories of it, and for the time, it being like the Spider-Man game, I gotta give it the respect it deserves and put it on greats. So Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation. I never played this game. I didn't even know there was a sequel until a couple years ago. Realistically, this is like one of the only games on here that I don't really have an opinion on because I don't really know anything about it. But like from my understanding is that it's basically this game, but worse. So I feel like if I had to put this realistically on the tier list, I'd probably put it under mid, but I can't really say that I played it, so it's gotta go under haven't played. So Spider-Man 1 for 2000 and, oh my God, was it 2002? The first of the Tobey Maguire games. We played through all of it. I really enjoyed it for what it was with the level design and the way that the game kind of played. All the different combos and stuff that you could do, the fun extra stuff like the Green Goblin mode, the bowling pin mode. It has the very like iconic like villain dialogue, the what's with the get up chump, circus in town. Such a fun game. Oh my God, the fucking that giant titan fight though. I don't think I'm ever gonna get that out of my head. This place is a maze. This place is a maze. This place is a maze. It drove me nuts. And I really don't remember it being as hard as it was. And I don't know if I'm just bad, but it just, oh God, it drove me crazy. It's very gimmicky, very funky. I remember it very fondly, so I'm gonna put it under pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. Spider-Man 2. Everybody thinks that this game is goated, but after replaying it, oh my God. The web swinging felt so uncomfortable. Tobey Maguire and the voice acting is so phoned in like a bad way. The Black Cat missions were fun. Like the Black Cat, they had to tone down the sexiness because they made her too sexy, which I just think is funny. But like the thing that I think that really holds the game back is that it was a movie licensed game. They had to like put in Doc Ock like at the very end. Like they had to follow the story beats, and I feel like the game was just kind of better when it was just kind of doing its own thing. But unfortunately, what happened with us is that the game had a big ass bug around chapter 10 where we couldn't progress. We got to a point, it was after Mysterio's Funhouse, where the game wouldn't progress us to the next level. And we looked in the forums, we checked everything that we could to see if there was something we could do. There was nothing we could do. I didn't want to restart. I really hate when games do that. And who's to say that if we restarted, if it would do it again? So honestly, I'm gonna put it under mid because of that. I had a really bad experience with it. Ultimate Spider-Man. This fucking game is the best out of the 3 GameCube games. The traversal is so good. It took what Spider-Man 2 did. Like it has the web zip, but what this game does is if it gives you the double jump, and what you're able to do is you're able to web zip and double jump pretty much indefinitely. So you just have a constant string of fast momentum, and it's so satisfying. The web swinging is so satisfying in that game. The combat is pretty basic for what it is. I think that Spider-Man 2 may have done the combat a little bit better, but like the way that the game just fucking you breeze through the game, it's so fast. badass. The web swinging is so satisfying. It still has that level of skill, but also the web climb mechanic was one of my favorite mechanics. The fact that you play as Venom, you have your own Venom missions. Venom literally kills a child in his first mission. I like the way that Venom played too. You get to fight Logan. You get to throw people off of buildings. You get to throw people off of buildings with Spider-Man also, but like it's just so funny that like you can just yeet someone with Venom. The Johnny Storm races, I always loved those. This was one of the games that I worked really hard to get everything, and it was one of my favorites, and it still is. Ultimate Spider-Man is going under goated. Spider-Man 3, oh boy. This game actually made me motion sick with the way that the web traversal worked. I don't know what it was. It was like the way that the camera kind of went sideways as it zoomed up, right? It had a lot of motion blur. If you like moved the stick at all when you were web swinging, the camera would just like zip, zip, zip all over the place. It literally made me nauseous at times. Like I had to take frequent breaks when I was playing it. The story itself, again, it falls into the same trap as Spider-Man 2. You have a story that already has too many villains in it, but then they just add in like 12 new villains. Like it's like, here's the Bomb Man, here's the Harley Quinn girls. You fight New Goblin one time, and the boss fight itself is so stupid. And then eventually you fight Sandman, but like the problem, they were making this game around the same time as Spider-Man 3, and they wanted to release relatively at the same time, but the script for Spider-Man 3 wasn't even done, so they kind of had to just do their own thing and guess at times what it was going to be like. So the story itself doesn't even really like match all that much. Ugh, I didn't even want to finish it. Like the bomb missions were so stupid. The game basically did this. It was like we developed so much time into defusing bombs that we're going to make like 50% of the game just defusing bombs. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking defuse bombs. I want to swing around and beat up people as Spider-Man. Even the combat was just kind of mid. I didn't really like the whole like slow down thing with the heavy and attacks. And I just, I spent $30 to replay this game. I rented it as a kid. I beat it in like a week. I bought the New Goblin DLC and I had fun with it. I wanted to replay it for the series, so I went out and I bought the game again. And I really wish I didn't, because this game's garbage. I hate it. I don't want to go back to it ever again. Spider-Man Friend or Foe. So this is a game that I did not play for my Road to Spider-Man 2 series. I used to have this on the Wii. I got it for, it was either my birthday or Christmas, and I beat it in one day. And I was so disappointed because of how fast it took me to beat it, but also because the game was not what I expected at all. It basically plays like a Lego game. Spider-Man and one other character villain, they come together and they have to stop like these aliens from taking over all of like New York or whatever, the world, I guess. Spider-Man gets recruited by S.H.I.E.L.D., and then you basically just solve a bunch of puzzles and just do puzzles and platforming and puzzles. You unlock like a bunch of villain characters and stuff. The one thing that I appreciated though is he got to play as Iron Fist. I liked Iron Fist. I like him in the Ultimate Spider-Man show, and I really liked him in this. I was glad that we got to play as Iron Fist and Black Cat, of course, you know. But the other thing that was really weird was that like it used the designs for all of the Raimi villains, and it was really weird that they did that because they didn't really tie into the Sam Raimi universe at all. But they had like the Raimi designs for all of the Raimi villains. They even had New Goblin in here, voiced by Josh Keaton. Fun fact. And then the guy who voices Spider-Man actually played Harry Osborn in Spectacular Spider-Man. But I think, honestly, one of the best things about Friends or Foe is that it actually had a Spectacular Spider-Man teaser in the game. That was cool. I think that's how I found out about Spectacular Spider-Man. But yeah, overall, this game is a dumpster fire. I would like to play it again with like maybe one other person, but it goes under dumpster fire for me. Spider-Man Web of Shadows. Technically, I still haven't finished this game yet, so I can't even really give it a proper rating. I'm about like 50 to 60-ish % of the way through on my first playthrough, I want to say. The combat is the best out of all these games that I have played so far. I like the changing story paths, all the different cameos stuff. The Wolverine boss fight was so cool. He actually gave you Spider-Man trivia that you had to know, and you had two options to end the fight. You either gained his trust all the way through, or you just beat the shit out of him. And yeah, that was your choice, and I chose to beat the shit out of him, and I did. Very effectively. I fucking skateboarded on his ass. I skateboarded on Black Cat's ass too, but you know what I meant. The only thing that kind of holds the game back for me with the combat is the web strike, because they did like this over reliance on the web strike, and that especially that one mission where you go web strike, web strike, web strike. It got really repetitive, and I mastered web strike when I was like 11 when I played Shattered Dimensions. I know how the fucking web strike works. It had like such an over reliance on it that I was like, Jesus, like every other game after this had a web strike. I really like this game. I want to go back and finish it. I'm gonna put it under great. It's a great game. Shattered Dimensions was one of my favorite Spider-Man games when I was a kid. I fucking loved this game. I love that this was the introduction to the actual Spider-Verse, that they had this idea where they saw Miguel and they were like, who the fuck is that? And they're like, it's Spider-Man 2099. There's all these different variations of Spider-Man. Beanox said, perfect. This is what we're doing. And they did it very well. All of the Spider-Men feel unique. I love how it's basically just like one big like homage to Spider-Man with all of the different versions, all of the different voice actors, like not even just with the Spider-Man villains, but they got like, sorry, not even just the Spider-Men, but the Spider-Man villains, they actually got voices for too. The way that the game plays is so great. All the different villains, the level design is great for all the levels. I like that it actually goes back to the level design instead of like the open world sandbox that literally like everything past the first Spider-Man game with the exception of this piece of shit did. And I really fucking love it. One of my favorite games of all time, especially for Spider-Man. I played the shit out of it. I'm shocked that I don't know where my copy is. The noir sections like made me a fan of Spider-Man Noir. That's why I love the character. Josh Keaton coming back as Ultimate Spider-Man. It's funny because if they did this a couple years later, Miles would easily be Ultimate Spider-Man. I've said everything that I've said about this game. I love it. The final boss fight is kind of mid, but like brings all of the Spider-Men together. I fucking love it. I'm giving it goated. It's a goated tier. Spider-Man Edge of Time. So fun fact about Edge of Time. I never played Edge of Time. However, I don't watch Let's Plays. This is the only game that I have watched a walkthrough or a Let's Play of because I wanted to play this and I never got the chance to do it. So I watched a walkthrough, saw that the gameplay was basically just glorified Shattered Dimensions, and I went, okay, I've done enough research on this game to have a valid opinion on it. So I'm gonna not put it under the haven't played, I'm gonna put it up here, okay? So Edge of Time is a really great story. It's canon to Shattered Dimensions. It has Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2099. They swapped the voices around though. So Amazing is voiced by Josh Keaton. Christopher Daniel Barnes also voices 2099 and he used to voice Spider-Man Noir. I think it works so much better for Miguel in this game. I love the dynamic between the two because Peter is the actual like real Spider-Man and he's telling Miguel how to be Spider-Man, and Miguel's saying like it's all about the future, it's about, you know, saving the future and the past, and Peter doesn't care because he wants to save as many people as possible. Miguel was gonna straight up let MJ die, and that's where they have that iconic line where Peter says, and if you don't know that, then you have no right to call yourself Spider-Man, or it's something like that. It's like you have no understanding of what it means to be Spider-Man, or something like that. It's like a really good iconic quote, and it came from this game. The level design, ooh, it's not open world, it's not level design, it's just a factory. It's just one building. It's a building, Miguel is in a building in the future, and Peter is in that same building in the past, and Peter does this thing where like what he does in the past affects Miguel in the future, but like they're all scripted set pieces. None of them really like happen like organically, and I kind of thought that's what it was. Like if Pete didn't clear out a room of goons, then for some reason Miguel would have to deal with them later or something like that. Like it didn't really have that kind of same effect that I thought it would. And you know, I really like the twist in the end, and I'm not going to spoil what the twist is, but like when you find out who's behind everything, it's like a big like, oh, it gives you like one of those like, oh shit moments. It's like I said, it's Shattered Dimensions combat with less Spider-Man. I don't like the level design, and I think that it's like kind of falls a little bit flat for me. It's kind of one of those games where it's like, I'm glad I watched it and didn't play it. So under that, like I gotta give it a pretty good. Amazing Spider-Man. So I bought this game. I spent money on it, and then I returned it. I didn't beat it. I got about halfway through the game. And this game is not very good. The web rush thing is so, it just stops all of your momentum, and you like watch Peter do things instead of actually do them. It's like, oh, I want to go here, 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 and here, and Pete goes, zip, zoop, bamoosh, yo. Like, but you don't really actually do it yourself. Like, you pause the game in order to kind of map it out, and then Pete just does it, and you just watch it. You don't really experience it, and you have to do that a lot. The combat is just kind of mid. It's mid Spider-Man combat. I appreciate that they had the story kind of take place after the first movie. I just didn't like it. I didn't like the story. I didn't like the plot lines, the Smythe thing. I didn't like it. It was garbage. I returned it. I'm putting it under garbage tier. Amazing Spider-Man 2. Much like Edge of Time, this is a game that I have not played. However, I have watched enough videos on it. I have seen the Angry Joe review, and I have done enough research to pretty much figure out what my opinions are on this game. The thing about this game that I immediately don't like is the, what would you call it? Like the menace system, where if you don't go out of your way to do Spider-Man side shit, like stopping crimes and doing this or whatever, then the public will start to hate Spider-Man. You will get chased after. There will be like blockades that will prevent you from swinging and going through until you help people to get your menace rating down. I don't know who thought of that, but that was a stupid idea in my opinion. Combat worked basically the same way as this game. The story itself kind of follows, like, not even really like after TASM 2, but it kind of does its like own thing while also being a movie tie-in game. There's a bunch of different villains in there. None of them are particularly interesting in my opinion. And the final boss of the game, which I won't spoil, is there for just for the sake of being there. And it has no real impact on the story in my opinion, but it also doesn't really make sense as to why he's there. And it's not a good game. This was the last of the Beanox games. And I say, you know what, good. Because like they started off strong, like really strong, but then they kind of went downhill. And I think with each game, it just got worse. And I think that this is probably like the worst of it. Like I said, I haven't personally played it and experienced it myself. I know enough about it to put it under dumpster fire. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with the last 3 games, the Insomniac trilogy so far. And we're gonna start with Spider-Man 1. What I can only describe as the perfect Spider-Man experience. From the first fucking trailer, the one where it just shows like 1 minute of gameplay with him in his like iconic white spider logo suit, we knew that this was gonna be a good game. We did not think that we were gonna be put in a roller coaster of emotions and just have our hearts ripped out and our childhoods being like sunk back to when I was a kid loving Spider-Man. This game fucking did Spider-Man right. What I love about this game is that it is the perfect Spider-Man experience, not only for just being Spider-Man, but for being Peter Parker, because Peter Parker gets shat on so much in this game. And when you think that things are starting to look up, they just go to shit again. Mr. Negative was the perfect villain for like the introduction of it, and then as the twist gets like as you progress through the story, it gets more ramped up, and it takes you in a place where there's a character that's introduced very early that no one knew was in the game. I won't spoil it, but once you saw it, you went, oh shit, my heart fucking sank when I saw it. And you go through the whole game thinking that it may or may not happen, and then it does, and it fucking breaks your heart because you see it in real time. You know what's gonna happen, but you don't want it to. You know that this is gonna be like the big confrontation, but you don't want it to happen. And that's what makes this game great for me. It made you feel the emotion. It made you feel like you had to like make the hard choice. And Peter, at the very end of the game, makes the ultimate hardest choice that anyone could make. And we could all feel it. We could feel the emotion. We could feel the tension. Like, we could feel like the weight of the choice that he had to make. And we all wanted him to make the wrong choice. I wanted him to make the wrong choice. But he doesn't, because he's Spider-Man. And it was so fucking painful. I cried like a bitch. My fiance cried like a bitch when she played it. Everybody that I knew just loved the shit out of this game. Combat, simple but very effective. The stealth sections, all of the gadgets that you get, fucking amazing. It's like Spider-Man Noir stealth, but just like amped up to the 10th degree with gadgets. You have a wide variety of gadgets that you can use. Traversal was one of the best things that you could do with the, like, this was the best traversal system ever, like swing assist or not. I can't stop gushing about this game. The amount of suits, the amount of fan service that are in this game. The only thing that really boils down the game a little bit is the MJ and Miles section, but honestly, first playthrough, I didn't mind it. Repeated playthroughs, I did. First playthrough, I liked how like the Spider-Manning was so good that you could just go non-stop, but having that little break to kind of like decompress your thoughts a little bit, it was nice to be able to slow down and kind of think about it, you know? But on repeated playthroughs, when you're actually speeding through the game a little bit more, then you can kind of feel like the whiplash a little bit. That's like really my only negative criticism on the game. And honestly, we all know where it's going. It's going under GOATed, but not just GOATed, but as the definitive Spider-Man experience. Miles Morales is the follow-up to Marvel's Spider-Man 1. This is Spider-Man 1.5, where it takes Miles Morales and on his own journey. He is learning how to become Spider-Man. Pete leaves for a week and he has to take care of New York for a little bit. Sort of like how the first game was like the definitive Peter Parker experience, this was the definitive Miles Morales experience. Like you're experiencing a whole different culture, whole different set of characters. A lot of people figure out that Miles is Spider-Man like really early on. Like Genki knows because he's smart and Miles is his best friend and whatever. But so many people find out that Miles is Spider-Man. Like his mom finds out, the main villain finds out. Like half of Brooklyn knows that he's Spider-Man, you know? He does not a good job of keeping his secret identity. But the thing that I loved about this is that, like, you could really feel that Miles had really big shoes to fill. And by the end of the game, he does. And you do that not really just by progressing through the main story, but through the side content as well. And I think that the side content in both games is done really well. But this one does it better because you can feel that you actually have to earn the trust of the people of the city. And by the end of the game, especially if you do all the side quests, you do. All the things that I praised about the first game are here as well. The things that hold this game back from me: one, the length is short, and the game encourages you to play it again because they know it's short, which isn't really that big of a problem. The main villain wasn't really too memorable. Like, it was kind of like the same situation with Peter, where it was a very like personal story. But then you had Troy Baker come in as this CEO guy, and he's just like a CEO guy. No, he's just a guy. But like by the end, I really enjoyed it. And it's not the definitive Peter Parker experience for sure, but I would put it right behind it as like one of the best Spider-Man games. A nice companion piece to the first one for sure. So I know that Spider-Man 2 wasn't on here, but I still have to put it on this tier list after I played it. Here's the thing about Spider-Man 2. A lot of people have been saying that Spider-Man 2 is like the Arkham City to Spider-Man's like Arkham Asylum. I have to disagree with that. The thing about Arkham City is that Arkham City is a game that, in my opinion, just completely surpasses Arkham Asylum. Like, once you play Arkham City, you never want to play Asylum again. That was me. I would compare it more to Spider-Man 2 being Arkham Knight to Spider-Man 1's Arkham City. Here's why. Spider-Man 2 does a lot to improve on the first two games. The combat is a little bit more refined. It adds a pairing. It adds the spider abilities, like the spider arms, Miles's venom abilities. You get the symbiote abilities, the symbiote surge with Peter. You get the Miles Chaos Blast. You know, it does a lot to improve on the combat of the first game. It also does a lot to improve on the traversal, because the traversal is so much better in Spider-Man 2. It's going to be impossible to go back to the first game and experience the aim assist, the web assist, because you can turn the web assist off in 2, but you also have the web wings. Traversal is a lot faster. Fast travel is instant. You can go anywhere. They do a lot to improve the gameplay and the quality of life settings of the first two games. However, my biggest complaint about Spider-Man 2 is that the parry sucks. There are so many instances where the parry either doesn't work, and even in the instances where like you have to like have those attacks where you have to only parry or only dodge. It really just boils down to looking like directly at the enemy, to look at their face and see the color of their head. And here's another thing that I discovered. You don't have invulnerability when you dodge. So there will be times where if you have to dodge an unblockable attack and you have to dodge it, you can still get hit even if you dodge. And it happened to me multiple times. But the thing about it that makes it bad, in my opinion, is that it completely takes all of the immersion out of you. Like, there were multiple times where my immersion was completely broken because of the acknowledgement of the controller. Now, that's just on the parry and the combat, and I've already talked about that at length. Those are my thoughts there. The stealth sections I did not enjoy because there are times where you will be forced to do stealth, but the only stealth that you have are web takedowns. You don't have as many creative gadgets to take down enemies anymore. You just have the web tether. It feels like you're almost more encouraged to fight everybody than do stealth, which is really interesting because even all of the gadgets are all attack-based or not stealth-based, whereas in the first game, they were kind of interchangeable. So as far as the main story goes, I like the story of Marvel Spider-Man 2. However, I think that the word predictable would probably be like the best way to describe it, but not in like a negative sense. I could feel like I knew where the story was gonna go because we've seen the symbiote arc before in a bunch of different medias. We know where it's going. And the only real difference here is that the symbiote is going to someone that's not Eddie Brock. It's very repetitive when you keep seeing that same thing. When I personally feel like the first Spider-Man game gave us something that I feel like we haven't really seen before. That doesn't mean that the story is bad. That doesn't mean that the gameplay is bad. But it kind of has this layer of immersion breaking a little bit where I felt like I wasn't as invested in the story. I wasn't invested in the character as much as I was before. And I felt like I was constantly being pulled out of that immersion. There were a lot of times where it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like I was having a good time at times because of that. But then you get those moments where the web traversal works, where the combat is working, and you're just fully sucked into the story, and it works really well. But then you have those moments where you're snapped out, and even during the final boss fight, I got so emotional because of the stakes, the consequences. Peter was gonna have to make a hard choice again, but then I would just get broken out of it because something with the gameplay just happened. And honestly, I wasn't really a big fan of how the story ended. I feel like the ending was gonna go one way, and then it kind of chickened out a little bit because I feel like they wanted to keep it open-ended. It also felt too, you had the final boss at the end where you had a bunch of different stages, but then it went into like a 5-minute cutscene where you occasionally did some QTE events, and it just, I don't know, I just felt bored because I was just watching and I wasn't really experiencing. And I really hate to compare the second game to the first game. I really do, because I feel like that's not really fair. But it is also called Spider-Man 2. And I feel like if I'm being objective about it, this game did not do what the first Marvel Spider-Man game did for me. I think that the web traversal, I think that the combat is like objectively better. There's a lot of decisions that they make with the combat and with the story that I just personally wasn't really a big fan of. So I know it's not on here for like the visual, but I'm gonna put Spider-Man 2 right behind Spider-Man 1. So that is my definitive tier list on all the Spider-Man games that I played from when I was a kid all the way up until now as a 25-year-old. Spider-Man is one of my favorite superheroes. I think a lot of people kind of share that same opinion. But I think really, at the end of the day, it's like the themes that this character and these games kind of portray and give you that sort of immersive experience. I think that's what really makes these games super memorable and super good, especially the ones on the goated tier right here for sure. And even going down to like great and pretty good. All of our opinions may vary, but they all kind of try to do the same thing, which is take your money, but take it in a way that makes you feel good. What are your thoughts on all of these different Spider-Man games? I'd love to hear what your opinions are in the comments below. Thank y'all again so much for watching, and I will see you next time.